So today we're just going to talk about what an exponent is. Do y'all remember that an exponent is this little number right here? Does everybody kind of remember that the little number written up high is an exponent? Okay. So that exponent, what it does is a lot of people think that this means like 4 times 3, but this is not 4 times 3. This says that we're going to take 4, this is called our base, and we'll talk about that in a second, and we're going to multiply it by itself 3 times. So notice there's 4 3s right there. Now, the good part is that your calculator, we can just put this into the calculator. You don't have to know that we multiply it by itself 4 times, but it's good to know that, all right? And then, of course, once you do that, the answer would be 64. So this is not 4 times 3, which is 12. This is 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. So right here, y'all see this little star thing right here? It's pointing at this n. And this right here is called the exponent. So this is the exponent. So do me a favor and write exponent down. So exponent. So write exponent right there. Okay. So the little number is called the exponent. Okay. The little number is called the exponent. Okay. All right. And then there's one down here, a little star. The big number right here is called the base. And so you'll hear us refer to this as the base from time to time. So let me go ahead and scroll down real quick. Okay, so this is called the base right here. The vocabulary on this isn't necessarily like I'm going to have you, do any kind of vocabulary test or anything like that. But if I refer to it as the base, we just want to make sure that we know that we're talking about the 3 or the 1. That's the base, the 4. And then the exponent is the little number. Just very quickly, so 1 times 1 to the 5th power is kind of how you would say that. 1 to the 5th would be 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. What's 1 times anything? Itself, right? 1 times anything itself. So what's the answer right here? So it's not 1 times 5, it's 1 times 1 times 1. So 1 times 1 is 1, times 1 is 1, times 1 is 1, times 1 is 1. So the answer is 1. Okay, so remember, it's not 1 times 5, it's 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. Okay. All right, 3 squared is not 3 times 2. It's you take the base and you write it twice. 3 times 3 would be what? 9. Now, for the most part, like I said, it's good for you to know what an exponent is, but your calculator will take care of it if there's a number. Now, when there's not a number, that's when, and most of the stuff we deal with is going to have letters in it. That's when it's, kind of good to know that this is really saying that there's 2 3s here. Okay. All right. But for today, the calculator would take care of most of what we're going to deal with. So we just want to make sure you know how to plug this into the calculator. So on your calculator, anytime we want to plug in an exponent that's not 2, do y'all remember how to plug this in? Go to regular calculator. So regular calculator. It was 2. And then how do I make the exponent that's any number? Do any of y'all remember? It's the house top thing. That house top. It's right next to the square. This button right here. That red, I just lit it up in red right there. Okay. So that house top button right there allows me to put anything I want. So 2 to the 5th, hit enter, and it does all the work for you. Okay. So the big thing today is that we know how to plug this into the calculator. Okay. So make sure you know how to plug that into the calculator. So 2 to the exponent 5. What's the next one? 5 to the 3rd. So we're going to go 5 and then hit the house top again. So it's that house top that allows you to do that. So 5 to the 3rd, hit enter, is 125. Notice the numbers are huge. When you see that 5 and that 3, you're in your mind, you're probably thinking 15. Okay. So anytime an exponent is involved, these numbers get huge real quick. Okay. 10 to the 3rd. So 10. Exponent 3, hit enter, 1,000. I think one of these, if you're working ahead, gets really, really big. So like number 3, I think gets really big. I don't know about number 2. Oh, number 12, anything to the first power is just the number itself. Anything to the first power right here. So anything to 1, now your calculator will tell you that. So you go 12 to the first power, but just in general, it's good to know anything to the first power is just that number itself. Okay. Anytime you have a number, so like if I just say 5, even though you don't see it, there's an understood exponent to the 1. Okay. So it's just the number itself. All right. So then that one that, let's see. So this one might be big. 10 to the 5th. Let's see. 10 to the 5th. Okay. That's not bad. So it's 10 with 5 zeros. That's what that is. So 10 with 5 zeros right there. 10 with 5 zeros. It's a 1 with 5 zeros, not a 10 with 5 zeros. So a 1 with 5 zeros. Now 10 to the 13th is going to be a 1 with how many zeros? 13 zeros. Does that make sense? So 10 to the 5 was 1 with 5 zeros, 10 to 13. Now, I think, oh, they do write that out. Okay. So just a lot of zeros. I'm not going to count the zeros, put a whole bunch of zeros. Well, I'll know that you know what it meant. Okay. All right. So there are a few other little rules, but for the most part, what I'm going to say is just make sure you always plug this into the calculator. Here's what I am going to tell you about this rule. I want you to look at here at the bottom. I want you to notice that this does not have parentheses, but this does. All I'm going to tell you is that it matters. So if you're plugging it into the calculator and it has parentheses, you can't say, oh, well, the parentheses don't matter, and plug it in like this. Because this one with no parentheses, see, both of these say -2 to the 4th. But the one without parentheses is a -16, and the one with parentheses is a +16. So the parentheses matter, okay? And if you put it in the calculator, as long as you put the parentheses, the calculator always knows what to do, okay? So the big thing I want to stress on that is just make sure that you, if there's parentheses, that you put it in the calculator, okay? All right. So go ahead and turn your page over. Dude, that's so big, I can't even see everything. It's a little bit better. Minimize that just a little bit. There we go. All right. So as we start going through this, like I said, a lot of y'all are going to be like, I don't remember this at all. Okay. This is all, this isn't all the stuff, but this is stuff that we covered in the last semester. All right. So you know how I love to do review. So this isn't about whether or not you remember it. Okay. I'm not worried if you're like, Settles, I don't remember this at all. This is about us, trying to relearn it. And once you relearn it, I think you'll be like, oh yeah, I do remember you talking about that. So when we look at this, we're always looking for keywords. So the keyword here is domain. So I'll be impressed if y'all can remember where the poster is in this class. Very good. Poster right here, okay, that says domain. So domain is our X's and range is our Y's. Now, this is where we talked about like cropping a picture that you take in your phone. So you take a picture in your phone and you don't like, you take a picture of yourself and you don't like all the stuff around you. So you crop everything out, right? So it's just you. So that's what we're doing here. We want to crop this picture, but domain means we're only cropping the x-axis. And remember, it has those 2 vertical lines. So it reminds you we're cropping vertically. We got to cross the x-axis. So this is where you're going to take your pencil and you're going to go to the edge of this picture. I'm going to kind of skip the circle itself so that we see the circle. So y'all remember doing this a little bit? Like I said, it's okay if you forgot how to do it. But if doing this right now helps you remember, then that's what we're trying to do today, is just remember that we used to be able to do this. All right, now good test takers are always looking at their answers. Oh, I should have looked at my answers even quicker. right off the bat, we should have eliminated 2 answers. Does anybody know what 2 answers we can eliminate? All right, so we can eliminate B because it has a Y, and we can eliminate D because it has a Y. Remember, domain was X's, right? Domain is X's. So both of these cross at -4, 2. Both of these say -4 and 2. So it comes down to the circle. So with -4, this is an open circle, and an open circle is no equal to bar, okay? So -4 right here has an open circle. An open circle is the only time you don't put an equal to bar. So which of these on -4 has a no equal to bar? Let's see. So like I said, it's, you know, if I would have had you to do this on your own today, a lot of us were probably like, I don't remember this at all. But you know, hopefully seeing that right there is like, oh yeah, I do remember that. Okay, so now on number 2, the keyword is range. So range is not X's, range is Y's. Okay. And so now we're cropping the Y axis. Okay. So we go up top to crop the top. And crop the top. So remember, we're cropping the Y axis now. We have to cross the Y axis. Can I crop the bottom where there's an arrow? No, we're not allowed to crop arrows. So we're only crop one thing here. Real quick reminder, because some of us have probably forgotten this. 1 dot, there should be 1 number for your answer. 1 dot, 1 number for your answer. 2 dots, and there should be 2 numbers for your answer. So the number of dots usually matches the number of answers. Okay. So we only have 1 dot, and what's that number? What number did we hit right there? 8. So it's not going to be A, it's not going to be C. All right, so this comes down to, once again, is it an open or closed circle? It's open, so that's the only time we do not put an equal to bar. So the answer would be D, no equal to bar. We do like to think that domain and range is considered easy, okay? So when we start talking about the midterm, now the midterm is not gonna be like our other tests, which are about like, what, 15 questions? I haven't seen the midterm, but I would assume it's gonna be something like in the 30s, okay? Now, a couple of good things. Number 1, the more questions there are, the more guessing C works. When there's only like 15 questions, guessing C, I mean, it helps, but it's just not as effective as when there's 30 questions. Or when you take the STAR test and there's 50 questions. Guessing C is much, much more powerful, I guess you could say. It's much more effective when the more questions are. So first off, on our final, guessing C is going to be big. But on your final, when you're looking for 30 questions, this is what we're looking for right there. I mean, we need that to be easy right there. Okay. So you just, and these posters will still be up. So you can, you know, realize what it is that you're cropping, crop that. And I think this is something that you guys can do on the test. So that's definitely something we're looking for on the test. All right. All right. So this is a little bit more domain and range. Come on, work with me here. All right. So right here, the keyword is domain. Notice I underline that word a lot. On a test, you know, whether you're highlighting that word or underlining that word, really stress that word. Stress that domain is X's. Okay. This is where, if y'all remember, we had y'all highlight the axis. Do y'all remember us doing that? Probably should have put out highlights today. I wasn't thinking about it, but we had y'all highlight the axis to make sure that you were going to that X axis. All right. How many dots do we see here? What, 4? That means there should be 4 numbers in my answer. Look at your answers. Which 2 answers can you eliminate because they don't have 4 numbers? C and D both have 2 numbers. So the number of dots should equal the number of numbers, okay? So now if you can go to the correct axis, then you get the right answer. All right, this one's tricky because everything in you will probably want to go to the y-axis because it's right next to it. But we have to go to the x-axis. So I like to draw a dot or a line from the dot to the x-axis. What number do we hit there? -1? All right, so do both of these answers have -1? Yep, okay, that's not it. The next one, we got 1. Both of them have a 1. The next one, we go to the x-axis, we got 2. Oh, only one of these has a 2. And the answer is B. Not to say that kids don't make mistakes on this. The most common mistake is you go to the wrong axis. Like I said, you see this right here, this dot is right next, you know they do this on purpose, right? They put that dot right next to 5 so that your eyes see the 5 and then look down here and see that 5. So that's why they do that. So you got to be disciplined. And you may get tricked. It may happen. Okay, that's life. All right. So right here, range. So what letter is range? The Y's, yeah. So we're going to the y-axis. I mean, my answers have to come from here. How many dots do you see? 2. So 2 dots means I should have 2 numbers. Look at your answers. There's 2 answers that don't make any sense here because they only got 1 number. Yeah, F and G only have 1 number. So 2 dots, 2 numbers. 1 dot would be 1 number. Now, when you look at your answers, both of these have 0. 0 is obviously one of our numbers. But our other number is either 90 or 6. And only one of those numbers comes from the y-axis. Which number comes from the y-axis? Yeah, 90. Now, that's kind of being a good test taker, just kind of showing you what we're talking about here. Cropping the y-axis, we should have cropped it there at 90, so it's crossing 90. And then, yes, this is touching 6 on the x-axis, but we're looking for the y. And so that's the y right there, that 0 right there. So it's 0 to 90. So the answer would be H. So hopefully y'all kind of remember domain and range a little bit. Like I said, if you don't, we're gonna, we'll keep working on it, but we would really like, at least for these right here, to be easy. I think this one should have been easy. This one can get a little confusing, I feel like. All right. Okay, so we have not talked about question 5 in a long time. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, this might be something that you, even though I think it's easy, this is something that you've probably forgotten, just because I haven't even put it in a lot of our reviews. It's this poster back here. So I'm sorry that some of y'all have to kind of turn around a little bit, but it has been a while since we looked at this right here. So on the day of your test, I mean, this is something that you may really want to use if questions like vertex come up. I want to remind you there's 3 different names for our x-intercept. So x-intercept, 0, or solution, and 0 is the one I want to stress to you. That gets a lot of people. So just remember that the word 0 is right here. It's pointing to the x-axis. And then, of course, the y. Right now, we really haven't talked about axis of symmetry. So the y-intercept, there's 3 names for the x-intercept, and then the vertex. So vertex, which is what this is asking for here, is that very top, or if it's upside down, the very bottom point. So put a dot right here. So put a dot right there. At the very top, that's what the vertex is. The very top or the very bottom. So now we just need to name that point. Now in green, I do have next to vertex X and Y, but I put this up at the very end of last semester. Just to remind you, X goes first and then Y, and always focus on the X. I don't know if you remember that, but take care of the X only first. 2 should be my first number. So look at these. Which one puts 2 as the first number? D, yeah. So if you are taking care of X, that's a really easy, and you won't get it wrong. If you look at the X and the Y at the same time, they almost always put it right before, but they reverse these 2 and they put the wrong answer right there. So take care of the X. In the end, I mean, you do need the X and the Y. Okay. So we got 2 and -3, but take care of that X, you should usually get your answer. So that's called the vertex. So right here. That's called the vertex. All right. What do we got here? I had to scroll down too far. Oh, what is domain? So domain, I'm going to scroll back down here for a second so I can see all my answers. So domain is x's, right? So we're cropping the x-axis. So we go to draw a line right here to crop the x-axis. Are you allowed to crop an arrow? No, we don't crop arrow. Because what does an arrow mean? Arrow means it keeps going, right? So we're not allowed to crop an arrow, right? So we cannot crop this right here. We cannot draw a line. What about on this side? Can I crop that line right there? No, arrows on both sides. So what do we call it when we can't crop anything because there's arrows that go on forever? We call it all real numbers. Now, when we test it, the boss at the district that makes these tests put this right here. These are infinity symbols. So infinity symbols would mean it goes on forever. She's also the one that will make our final. Now, I don't know if she will have this or if she'll have all real numbers. But we tend to call this all real numbers. But if it's written like that, we want to know. So if you see that you can't crop anything because there's arrows on both sides, that's all real numbers. So that's B. Those can sometimes get a little tricky too. Okay, so this right here might be a little tough, just depending, we haven't talked about this a whole lot, but there's something that we see here that's huge. It's a big part of our strategy. So we want to remind you of this strategy. Anytime that you see y equals, what are we going to do? Y'all remember? It's kind of been a while since. This is calculator. I want to remind you of these two green posters over here, okay? So anytime it's y equals, if you got two letters back to back, that's a y, okay? So anytime we see y equals or two letters back to back with an equal sign, then we're going to graphs. So grab your calculator. So this is one of those things that's been a while and you just need practice on, okay? So grab your calculators. Remember, graphs is the second one right here. I would not, when you're doing graphs, I would not use Scratchpad. I mean, you can, but Scratchpad tends to screw up a lot. So I'll hit graphs right there. Now, we don't type in the y equals. This is your y equals right here. So we're typing in what we got here, 3x squared plus 6x. So type in 3x squared plus 6x. So type that in and hit enter real quick, okay? Type that in and hit enter. Type that in and hit enter. All right. So once we type this in, we always hit menu 5-1. So menu 5-1. Now, this question is asking for the vertex. So just a second ago, we looked at this poster up here, and vertex is the very highest point or the very lowest point. So on our calculator, this is the very lowest point right here. So I want you to use your left and right buttons. Up and down doesn't do anything on this calculator. Well, at least not right here. Use your left and right and take this tracer to the very bottom point. Now, the awesome part with this calculator is when you get there, a yellow bar shows up, a yellow box shows up. So this tells you, now it says minimum because it's also a minimum. But when that shows up, you know you've gotten to that box. And what's the vertex here? -1, -3. So if they give you an equation, so -1, -3 would be C. Then type it in and let's see what happens. You may not be as good at this. That's all right. I mean, we'll keep practicing it, but you may not be as good on that one. That's a little bit tougher. But anytime you got y equals, type it in, hit menu 5-1, and then let's start seeing what happens. Maybe something good happens, maybe not. I don't know. All right, number 8 is the one I always worry about because we don't see a whole lot of these, and these are super easy. This is just a basic equation. There's no y's in this, there's just x's. And it doesn't matter what the letter is, as long as there's just one type of letter. So there's just x's. This is a basic equation. Does anybody remember? This was back from unit 1. This is the oldest thing we've done. Does anybody remember where we can, this is calculator, by the way, where we do this in the calculator? Basic equations. So basic equations, remember, if it doesn't have a y equals, or a y at all, if it doesn't have two different letters, then you want to be looking at calculator if there's something you can do. Okay. And basic equations is menu 3-1 in solve. Okay. Really easy to do. So grab your calculator. So this is one of those things we just got to keep practicing this till we get good at this. So this is regular calculator. And then we're going to hit menu 3-1. So it's in solve, menu 3-1, and it brings up this little in solve thing right here. Okay. So hopefully y'all remember doing this. I got to cheat so I can do this quickly. I'm going to cheat off. All right. So we got 13 equals -5. Remember, always use that minus sign right there. -5 x. My eyes are bad. Does that say plus? I think that's a faded plus right there. Let me go back and look. Oh, our copy machine did a terrible job. That's a plus right there. That kind of looks like a minus on y'all's paper. That's a plus. So +5 -3, and then parentheses x. All right, now when we get done, we can't just hit enter. It's going to give you an error message. Y'all remember what we hit? Comma x, or comma whatever letter we're using. So the comma is over here at the left, just a reminder. Right there's where the comma is. I lit it up red. Okay. So comma x. Then you can hit enter, and the answer is -1. So -1 would be our answer right there, B. Okay. So I put these on here for a couple of reasons here. First off, I don't know if y'all remember the A sub n's, but the poster for this is back here. We do not consider this easy at all. Okay. So first off, some of y'all could do this. So here's the posters back here. Okay. A lot of y'all were not even in class when we did this. And this right here is just tough. Just looking at that, does that not look a little bit like Chinese right now to y'all? I mean, it just looks weird, doesn't it? Now, it's not to say that y'all couldn't do this, but we're trying to remember so much stuff. I really want to focus in on the easy stuff. Okay. So let's say that your strategy is to guess on this. You might be able to do it, but let's say that your strategy is to guess on this. But it's not multiple choice. We still have a strategy. Do y'all remember what the strategy is? 1 through 20. Guess a number between 1 through 20. If you want to make it negative, that's great. If you don't, that's fine too. But the last few tests, like every time, and this is the same way it is on the STAR test, like the answers just always seem to be 1 through 20. I'm not going to lie. I would even say so much to say that the answers tend to be even more 1 through 5. Okay. My number's 5. That's what I always guess. Okay. 1 through 20 tends to give you a good chance. I feel like the answers like 2, 3, and 5 tend to be on tests a lot. Okay. So that's why my number is always 5. Just in my experience, I tend to see 5 a lot. So the one reminder, I want y'all to guess the number real quick. I don't care what you put, you're just going to put some. Everybody's going to have a different answer here. We're practicing guessing. Now, you cannot put a number in this first box. The first box is only for positive or negative. And you are more than welcome to put a negative. So when we say guess a number 1 to 20, if you want to make it a negative, that's fine. There was an answer on one of the last tests, And the answer was 2. And this kid didn't want to guess anything. And I'm like, no, just guess, just put a number down. And he puts 2 down. And I'm like, yes. And then he goes and makes it negative. I'm like, no. Of course, I couldn't tell him because it was a test, right? But I sat there and watched him do it, and he actually guessed the number, but then he changed the sign. So, but still, I mean, sometimes it's negative too, so there's nothing wrong with it. But I'm a 5. That's just what I guess. So I put 5. So your number starts in the second box, and then positive or negative goes in that first box. Put any number you want, as long as it's not a crazy like 1.75324. I don't know. I get kids that put all sorts of. I'm like, are you serious? I don't know. They put all sorts of crazy things. It just, I'm like, no, give yourself a shot. Okay, this one is using the same thing here. That same kind of crazy stuff. If it just had the A in the end, that's a Y. It's this right here that makes it really weird. Okay. So what's our strategy here? When it's multiple choice. What's our strategy when we don't know what to do? Guess C, yeah. Which is kind of funny because I happen to remember this question and the answer I believe is C. I think it is C. But I don't even begin to know what the number 9 is. But like I said, I mean, we just want to make sure that we keep practicing what we preach. A lot of y'all have bought into this and it's working for you guys. I love that y'all bought into guessing C. So this was the one I told y'all you might have forgotten what a 0 is. I want you to remember that that word is in here. It is over there, but this is the place I really want you to get familiar with zeros, right here. So the word 0 is just another name for x-intercept, okay? So you can see it pointing to the x-axis. Guys, this might be the easiest question on your test. They have had this question on like the last 3 tests, and the majority of kids miss this every time. And this is probably the easiest question on the whole test, okay? All we want to know when it says zeros is where does it touch the x-axis? So this red line right here, where does it touch the x-axis? -1 and +3. So the answer that has -1 and +3 would be D. I mean, there is no work, no calculator. I mean, by far, this is the easiest question on the STAR test, on any test we take. If you see the word 0, it's just where does it cross the x-axis? In Unit 7, we talk about quadratics, and we will hammer this, and you'll be really good at this in Unit 7. But it also is going to be on our I say it is. I assume it's going to be on our final. So I would try to know this now. All right. So once again, it has zeros. So where does it touch the x-axis? It only touches once. -3. That's B. Super, super easy questions right there. So we definitely want to make sure that we are. And even if you forget, like I said, at least know that the poster's up there. That anytime we see that word 0, and it will remind you. All right. Okay, so this is a big strategy of ours. When you see, remember, 2 letters back to back make a Y, right? So when we see Y equals, we're going to plug this in the calculator, right? We're going to hit menu 5-1. And then if they give you an extra number, then we type that number in. Okay. So let's go try it out. So we're going to go, it was Y equals. So we're going to go to graph. So remember, Y equals is done in graphs. This is your Y equals. So we're going to type in -3x squared. What was the rest? Squared plus 5x. And -2, I think. All right, so we hit enter. We hit menu 5-1. Now, like I said, at this point, you may not know exactly what's going on. We really don't want this 0 here. So we're not, whenever this pops up, we're really never concerned with that 0 right there. Okay. So usually we need to turn this into something, or we're looking for something specific, like moving this around. So what was the number they gave me? 4. So we're going to just type in 4. And like I said, you might know that this 4 is in the place of X. So I don't know if that makes sense right here. That 4 took the place of that X. You might know that. You may not. You may be like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I see a 4. So I'm going to hit 4. And then I see this negative 30. And so that is going to be our answer. Okay, is this negative 30? But you follow strategy. Okay, you see y equals, you see an extra number, then type it in. And, you know, you get that, you type in 4 and you get negative 30, write it down. And the chances are you're going to be right. Okay. And so, like I said, really what's happening is this 4 takes the place of X. And so they want to know what the Y is when X is 4. That's what's really going on. But even if you don't know that, you follow strategy. Okay. See Y equals, see an extra number. You know, go hit menu 5.1 and type in that number. Do y'all remember how to tell if this is a function? The X's are not allowed to repeat. So you only look at the X's right here. Do any of the X's repeat? Yeah, the 2 negative 4s, so that's no. And then I think we have just one last question. And there's a keyword here that we have not seen in a while, but y'all were awesome at this whenever we were doing this in class. And that is varies directly. So anytime you see the words varies directly right here, so varies directly means that we set up a proportion. And y'all do the butterfly method. Y'all remember the butterfly method? So varies directly is the butterfly method. So the first 2 numbers you see, so 75 and then 60. And then 75 is bottles. So bottles is on top. And then degrees. So I'm just going to put a circle for the degrees right there. And then they give you bottles. So we already said bottles was on top. So 120 X. So you're going to multiply these 2 and then divide by 75. So multiply these 2 and then divide by 75. So go to regular calculator. We're going to multiply 120 times 60 and divide by 75. Hit enter. And we get 96. Is that one of your answers? Yep, C.